Today we're going to go through the setup of the cash basis reporting module. We're going to take a look at the account format setup, the changes required in the account format to make cash basis reporting work, and we're going to take a look at the cash basis reporting setup window. Cash basis reporting works by actually taking a segment in the chart of accounts in the account format setup and using that to split the chart of accounts into both an accrual ledger and a cash basis ledger. You'll notice today that we're working in the Fabricam company and that we've got the standard account format set up in the Fabricam company, with the exception of the fact that we have added one segment at the end of the account format string, the cash basis segment. Cash basis reporting does not worry about where in the account format that segment falls, but we have added it at the end today. You'll notice that the segment is only one character long. You can take any number of characters that you like, but we do require at least one character, and that we call it expansion 2 so that it displays more clearly. Once that is complete, you're ready to take a look at cash basis setup. In order to get to the cash basis setup window, we go to the Microsoft Dynamics GP menu, Tools, Setup, Financial, and CBR Setup. You'll notice that the cash basis setup window is a fairly straightforward window. The first field that we have to take care of is the cash accrual segment. When you drop down that list, you'll notice that it is automatically populated with all of the segments from the account format setup. We will select the cash basis segment. Note that it does not matter where in the account format this segment falls. It can be first, it can be last. It doesn't make a difference to the cash basis modules. We simply need it to be selected here. The next two fields are the cash segment ID and the accrual segment ID. This is what cash basis reporting uses to effectively split the ledger into two separate cash and accrual basis ledgers. So from here forward, all of our cash basis GL accounts will be identified by a C in that segment. Accrual accounts will have an A in that segment. Note that you can use any values here that you would like. You can use C and A, 0 and 1. Many of our customers use C for the cash segment and 0 for the accrual segment. That gives them the benefit of, as they're keying an accrual account number, they do not have to take their fingers off of the 10 key. They can simply keep keying account numbers. The next two fields are the unapplied cash disbursements and unapplied cash receipts fields. The unapplied cash disbursements and unapplied cash receipts accounts are used to keep track of funds that are paid or received without having an invoice to apply those to. When you transact cash in the system, obviously there needs to be some way to post that to the cash basis ledger. And when we do not have an invoice to post those against, these are the two GL accounts that are used. So in the case of, say, an unapplied cash disbursement where you pay an attorney, we take those dollars when they are paid and put them into the unapplied cash disbursements account. At a later date, when you receive an invoice from the attorney and you apply those dollars, cash basis reporting automatically takes those dollars out of the unapplied account and moves them into the appropriate expense account. Obviously, in the case of receipts, it would put them into the appropriate revenue account. These two GL accounts can be placed on either the P&L statement or the balance sheet. From a functionality standpoint, it really does not make any difference to cash basis reporting where they exist. It is really up to the client preference as to whether they appear on the P&L or the balance sheet. The next item to set up is use divisional unapplied receipt disbursement accounts. This allows you to set up the system to use a separate account for each division for the unapplied cash disbursements and receipts in the same way that you would use a divisional retained earnings account. When you select that box, you can then select the division that you would like to use in your chart of accounts. That will have the effect of recording disbursements and receipts that are unapplied to that division. The next item in setup, default all new journal entries to be mirrored in the cash basis ledger, is actually the only place in the system where we need some user intervention. Cash basis reporting was designed to keep user intervention to a minimum, and at the subledger level, there is no intervention required. We can determine whether or not an entry needs to be mirrored by looking at the distributions and reacting accordingly. At the GL level, this is not available to us, and so at times we need the user to indicate whether or not an entry should be mirrored into the cash basis ledger. When you key a GL transaction, you can key only the accrual side of the transaction and then mark a box to have it post into both the accrual and cash basis ledgers. If we open the GL transaction entry window, you will see the window open to the side. And as we enter the transaction, and you'll see the GL entry number pop up, the box, mirror this entry into the cash basis ledger, is automatically checked. The setup window controls whether that box is marked by default. The next item, Enable Cash Basis Reporting, is simply an on-off button for each company in your Dynamics system. If you have multiple companies, some may be using cash basis reporting and some may not be using cash basis reporting. Also, there may be needs at times to turn off the cash basis reporting system as you enter a particular transaction. Those times should be exceedingly rare, but if you need to, you can come in, click this button, and cash basis reporting will not mirror transactions during that time. The next two boxes, mirror journal entries created by fixed assets and allow mirroring of transactions from inventory, allow you to do exactly that. We have found over the years that we have sold the cash basis reporting module that most companies do a modified cash basis system rather than a pure cash basis system, and this modified cash basis system takes many forms. Some companies want to book fixed assets and or inventory into their cash basis ledger. If you mark these boxes, you can then go in at the GL level and mark batches from those modules to post into the cash basis ledger. And that has the effect of booking those transactions into the cash ledger. The next two options, Net PM Credit Memos against Invoice Distributions, which is the default, or Show Full Invoice Distributions with Full Credit Memo Distribution Offset, control how payables credit memos are handled. Originally, cash basis reporting was designed so that any partially paid invoice resulted in pro rata distributions booked to the cash basis ledger. This caused issues in certain businesses that ran divisional P&Ls, such as medical practices and law firms, where partners or doctors may like to see their own P&L. In some cases, taking that pro rata share of distributions could cause those divisional P&Ls to be slightly inaccurate. When you take the second option, Show Full Invoice Distributions with Full Credit Memo Distribution Offset, that problem is eradicated. In that case, the invoice distributions are shown in full in the cash basis ledger, and we take the credit memo distributions as an offset to the amount that is booked to the cash basis ledger, which leaves us the net cash number correctly. When setting up the system, it really doesn't matter if they're not going to be running divisional P&L statements, which way this is set up. In the case of some of those businesses that are indeed divisional P&L sensitive, you'll want to take the Show Full Invoice Distributions with Full CM Distribution Offset option. The next button, Update Accrual Segment, is typically used by people who have an existing chart of accounts. If you have an existing chart of accounts and you add the cash basis segment to it, all of the GL accounts will have a blank in that segment. Update Accrual Segment will go through your chart of accounts and will place the accrual segment ID into that blank segment for each of those GL accounts. That way you do not have to go through and manually update all of your GL accounts to include the accrual segment ID. That's done automatically for you. The next button, Create Cash Basis Accounts, will go through and will create a cash basis GL account for each accrual basis GL account in the system. This is not strictly necessary. When cash basis reporting sees an accrual basis account that it does not recognize, it will automatically create the cash basis GL account and then post to it. So if you do not click this button, you're not going to break the system. The question we usually get is whether or not we should click that button, and really the answer comes down to three things. One, some customers like to see a full chart of accounts on the cash basis side of things, and obviously then you would want to. Also, some companies like to do cash basis budgeting, in which case you would want the cash basis accounts. And then the third item is some companies have an extremely large chart of accounts. We have some customers running it with charts of accounts in excess of 70 to 80,000 accrual basis GL accounts, and they want to keep it small. So in that case, obviously, you would not click the button, and you would simply report off of the GL accounts that Cash Basis creates. Regardless, you're not going to break the system either way. It's purely client preference. The next button, Check Account Summary History, is an administrator type button. Basically, there is a view that ships with Dynamics GP that is occasionally malformed. If you click this button, it will check and make sure that it's correct. If there's an issue and you are logged in as SA, it will correct that issue for you. The last button, Generate Historical Transaction, allows you to create historical transactions for the payables, receivables, or cash management module. It will create a batch of GL transactions. You can review those transactions and then post them to create past cash basis history. This utility will actually go through and create all of the transactions in those modules. However, there are a few caveats. Particularly in the payables management area, if invoices are paid via credit cards, there can be some reconciliation issues that need to be dealt with. That concludes our discussion of the cash basis reporting setup. In the next video, we will be taking a look at transactions, the way they flow through the system, and how reporting is accomplished with the cash basis reporting module. Thanks for watching and have a great day.